Hey DDH, it's Chef Luke here. Long time no see. I am here today to show you a couple things that you might want to do in the kitchen. Going to do something with squash. We're going to do a dip with tomatoes and peppers and nuts. And we're going to do crackers, which for all of you who have been to Monday night dinner before, you know is a staple of Monday night dinner. The squash and the crackers will end up in the welcome kits that y'all get later this week. And then we can have a conversation about Monday night dinner and reminiscences and things like that tomorrow evening. So these videos, I am not a videographer. I'll do my best. Here are some ingredients you can see now, and what I'll try to do is show you some of the different stages of each of these recipes, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to pause here, and then we'll pick back up when we're ready to actually start cutting and preparing. Okay, so we have a squash here, and this is a big old butternut squash. And squashes are going to have seeds in the middle of them, and they're usually going to have seeds near the slightly thicker end. So what I'm going to do is carefully cut off the top, and the bottom. I don't want to waste too much squash, so I'm going to toss these things away. And then I'm going to cut about here so that I can deal with the part that has the seeds and the part that doesn't have the seeds separately. And for those of you who feel comfortable with this, I might cut it in 2 more pieces because this is kind of long. I'm going to then always want a flat surface down when you're doing anything delicate cutting. I'm just going to use my knife to peel the edge of the squash. So, got this. Here we go. Now you got a nice peeled squash all the way around. And then I'm going to try to clean up as I go because I don't really want all this stuff to get in the way of my cutting board. At DDH we have loads of space in the kitchen, but here in my apartment I don't. So again, I want a flat surface, so I'm going to cut in all 3 dimensions. I'm going to first make myself these flat planes, then have these. Then I'm going to take them and go this way. And then I'm going to cut in the 3rd dimension to make my cubes of squash. Nice and easy. Nice cubes of squash. And since I have a ton of squash that I'm making for y'all, I'm going to put all the cubes in this huge container. I always like having containers bigger than what I need because I don't want to run out of space. I don't want to have containers that are overflowing with stuff. So I'm just going to take this container and I'm going to fill it with all sorts of cubes of squash. Now, on the flip side here, we are going to have this thicker part of the squash, which I'm going to peel similarly to what I did before. I don't want to cut it in half before I peel it because it's easiest to peel it with this flat side down and with it totally stable on the cutting board. If I peel it later, it'll just make my life harder. I'm just trying to waste as little squash as possible. It's a little harder with the curved edges to work your knife around the edge. If you want to use a peeler, you could. I just prefer using my knife, but whatever y'all prefer. Anyway, take those peels, put them away, and then when I cut into this one, it's not going to be the same. There's going to be some seeds in there. So then I'm going to take my spoon, which I swear I had a spoon, and of course it's disappeared. So now I got to find my spoon. Just get another spoon. I'm going to take my spoon and just, if I start from the top and kind of get not just the seeds, but the edge just past the seeds, then I can basically pull the whole seed layer out without the seeds themselves actually getting all messy in here. And I'm going to take that whole seed layer out and put it, oops, I missed one, put it in this bowl here. I'm going to use the seeds and the squash, but I want to keep them separate. And you can see this is totally hollowed out and ready to cut the same way as the other one. So I'm going to go through all these squashes and do all the squash, all the seeds, and get that ready to go. And we'll come back and I'll show you what I'm going to do with them. And we're back, and then you can see I've cut now 4 full butternut squashes in this huge bin. And as you can see, the seeds just fill up this little bowl. We're going to use both of those. Before I stop this part of the video, I want to just briefly show you how I'm going to cut each of the other things I'm cutting, and then we'll do a second video for the next stage in the process. So tomatoes, I'm just going to cut in half. Super simple. Kumquat, similarly. This is a kumquat. Looks like a grape, but it's an orange colored grape, and you can eat the skin. I'm also just going to cut those in half, similar to the tomatoes. And then this is a pepper, and you might already know this, but just in case you don't, there's really nice tricks to cut a pepper so you don't have to deal with the seeds. If you cut through the stem, so about there, cut straight through the stem, you get this nice piece. The stem itself will fall out if you get it in the right place. You can toss that. You have this piece that you can use, and then the bottom piece, the seed pod is still attached. You can just take it out carefully. It's entirely intact. Toss it away. Pull out any remaining seeds. There's sometimes a few left that are usually clung to the edges. Tap out the rest, and you have a totally nice clean pepper. And then I'll just take those last few seeds that weren't on the pod and get them off my cutting board with my knife. Toss them away, and then in this case with the pepper, I want to cut it into really thin strips, so I'm going to cut it in half first. Again, you always want a flat surface, and then just go down the line. And when you cut things, you always want your fingernails to be in the line of duty before your fingers, so that if you do, God forbid, miss, you're going to cut your fingernail off, not your finger off, because about halfway I'll flip it here. Definitely don't want to cut your finger off. Be a little more careful on these last few, and you end up with a bunch of nice thin pepper slices. So that's how I break down a pepper. And so when we come back in the next video, I'm going to show you how I'm going to cook the squash and the tomatoes and the kumquats all on a very low heat so that it kind of dries them out and concentrates their flavor, but doesn't sort of, it'll do some real wonders for the texture. We don't want to dry them out completely. Like if you dried them out completely, you'd have kind of like a sun-dried tomato. In this case, we don't want to dry them out quite that far, but almost. So we'll be back with that video soon.